So this pilot project is a successional silvo-arable agroforestry system with alley cropping. So each one of those words means and modifies the word agroforestry. So the successional aspect refers to the fact that the tree system, which I'm standing in front of here, incorporates the ecological concept of succession. There would usually be a procession of different types of species performing a function, changing the system, changing that niche in the environment and making it more like a forest. And so here we've chosen that we can bring in annual cash crops, annual cover crops, and then put in different kinds of perennial cash crops that lead us to having productive trees. So it's not simply the trees being stuck into the field and then we wait for them to produce, but we have backtracked from, okay, we want trees to the initial starting conditions and how do we create a pathway to those trees. And when you make a pathway like that, you also get to successional as a economic kind of concept. We want to have cash crops built into the system so that we start paying back the investment costs for the entire system. A lot of the scientific basis for this is being published in the scientific literature, but it hasn't been put together in a system and farmed in our context for a while. In other climates, it shows a lot of promise for bringing in revenue and building the soil's ability to support the tree species that you finally get to. But we need some more information on how that might look here in Finland, so we designed a system and put it in. And then the silvo-arable means that we're integrating these tree systems with broad acre kind of crops. All those different things that farmers grow on a large scale will take place in the alleys or the space between the trees. The alleys have been designed to be as small as possible so we get as many trees as we could, while still allowing enough sunlight to enter the alleys from all the trees to produce wheat and peas and other types of crops like this once we get the soil turned around. And that 12-meter alley that we have can be subdivided by the width of the machinery that we use to work the alleys. So we can decide if we would like to plant more than one crop in each alley. So it's also been designed so that the whole system works together, and hopefully in the long run, we'll see benefits from having this silvo-arable system over just one thing or the other. Because you could just have wheat and you could just have trees. But we would like to see what happens if we put them together. What I'd really like to say is that this particular project, if it sparks your interest and you want to look at it closer, you visit our website, maybe you come out for a field day, please understand that we are trying to do something here in this field which is very risky. The barriers that we've self-imposed towards improving the soil, they're not exactly for farmers to look at this and say, I will take that and do it on my farm. So some advice if you're looking to start a alley cropping kind of system is don't plant trees in the first few years. There's no need to rush into planting the trees. Spend a lot of time planning, and then also spend time really understanding the soil and the changes in the soil through the field that you would like to have that system in. Observe that system, see which species are working, which ones aren't. You'll be able to also tell what kind of nutrients are available and what aren't, that aren't showing up on a soil test or are hard to interpret. And then just keep working that until you feel comfortable that now the soil is really in the shape where if I put an apple tree in there, it's going to survive. So this system has multiple different products, and we could divide them into two categories. So we have one category of products that'll come from the tree system, and then you'll have products coming from the alleys. In the tree system, we're focusing on fruit and berries in particular, along with a few other things. For the most part, we actually have sweet cherries, plums, pears for the fruit that are occupying a higher layer, and then lower we have red currants, white currants, and black currants as the main berry species. There are a few other berries in here, here and there we've put a few things in. And then we also have rhubarb as an understory crop, which is also something that people like to use. We can already see that there have been some positive changes in this site. It's helpful to go back to what the site was before we started. And before we started, it was simply a few species of grass. It was low biodiversity when we started. And by bringing in the biodiverse tree systems with the cover crops, and we're starting to do cover crops in the alleys as well, and then diverse perennial herbaceous plants all along the margins or the edges of the whole site, we've increased the biodiversity of the plant species considerably over the baseline figure. So we're allowing the space behind us to go into seed, so we get some fresh seeds into the soil seed bank, but also to feed the wildlife, so it's a bird food. We also have lots of different kinds of plants producing litter or mulch going down to the soil surface. That is kickstarting the biodiversity in the soil with the decomposition that we need to have happen. We need to cycle the carbon and the nutrients that the plants are taking up out of the soil. That needs to happen. So now we have some fungi. We see a lot more of them in the tree lines. We can see that there are more earthworms as well. When we started, there were very few earthworms. Insects, birds are starting to move in. I mentioned that we're trying to feed some of them as well, but they're moving into the tree systems too and looking for insects. So we're seeing multiple kinds of changes. That's one of the nicest things about it, is to watch it kind of come back to life from just being a grass field that gets mowed down to this big to having different things happening. So lots of biodiversity. The motivation to start this project actually came from when I was previously as an entrepreneur running a small farm. I was thinking, what did I not gain the experience with that I still would have liked? And it was mostly trees. So I thought it'd be rather interesting. Could we combine my experience with annuals, my interest in the trees, with his experience with growing these broadacre crops in one place with new methods? So it's a real cooperation between the two of us, bringing our talents and interests and ideas in one place without jeopardizing production on the main farm. Even if this fails, the outcome is better than what it was just being mown once a year. This kind of farming can improve the quality of the products. It's true. So when I say this kind of farming, I mean paying attention to the fact that all of our crops and also all of the animals, if you have animal agriculture, are the product of millions of years of evolution. That means that they have co-evolved with other organisms in the ecosystem at large in order to live out their life cycle. What that means is they're capable of extracting the nutrients they need from the soil as long as they're doing that in cooperation with a living soil food web. You develop a living system where the plants are getting what they need, and when they get what they need and they reach a baseline level of health, they have the resources to invest in secondary plant compounds. So the soil can provide the high plane of nutrition during normal seasons. And then what the farmer can do in this type of farming is follow the progress of the plants and of the soil, taking laboratory measurements, assessing, is what I see occurring actually occurring in a quantitative fashion inside the plant. One of the things about the project has been that we wanted to see what biodiverse plant communities could do to alter the soil chemistry. So we haven't put inputs into the soil except for a one-time application of horse manure compost. You have to allow the calcium to operate inside the plants so that they can photosynthesize, so they can feed the soil, so they can extract the nutrients from this living soil food web. So all of this needs to come together and it produces a higher quality product. And you'll know as a customer when it's higher quality when you smell it, when you see it, when you touch it, and you can feel. And then even better for customers is when you buy it and you put it in your refrigerator and you keep it there for 4 weeks and it looks exactly the same as it did the day you bought it. So the first benefit to the farmer would be that using and then managing them as a whole ecosystem, you can improve your soil resource. So if we improve the soil resource, then we should have better quality crops coming from the alleys. Better quality crops fetch a higher price. Usually they also mean less inputs because the soil is capable of supporting them rather than buying a lot of inputs to try to force them to be high quality. So you have a lot of benefits to the economics, to the way that the soil functions. If we can adopt them here and use the machinery and calculate the yields and the inputs, then those lessons from each growing season immediately become available to other people, even before this system matures, or even if a farmer has no interest in agroforestry, this field still produces information that could be useful for farmers more broadly. As long as you bring your trees and your shrubs into the system in a way that makes sense for you, that's agroforestry. So this is a highly experimental project. A lot of this stuff might not work, but it's that trying something really new and getting new experience and new information that then we can come back and inform systems that were more likely to work. Things that are just more in line with current practice and available technology and information. We can bring information back to that to help those get a little bit better. But we're taking risks in this field. But risk is where potential reward sits.